Hey, welcome to Level Up the CMJ program. Hey, my name is Joe, and this is my dice shooting journey. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our dice training in the morning with Joe. Make sure you get those dice out. Make sure that you are ready to practice, and let's get going. I'm going to assume that you've already done your warm-ups already, so you've done your stretches, and you're ready to start your review of the white and yellow belt levels. We're going to start off with our dice grips. So all we're going to do is just get into our dice grip 10 times. It's one. Make sure you pick a dice grip that is comfortable for you. Make sure that you get this down perfect. Make sure that this becomes a constant so that you are doing it on a routine basis and you can get it down to the point where you don't even have to look at it hardly. It's all by feel, and you know whether it's right or whether it's not right just by feeling the dice and knowing how they should be placed in your fingers. Make sure that we are keeping the dice so they are square, and if you don't get it right the first time, set them down, redo it again, but they're square and they're tight together. Good morning, Navaldo. How you doing? So again, we're gonna go a couple more here, and we're doing our dicing. Today we're gonna do a different type of drill in a little bit, something that I had learned from a document that George had sent to me. And this is a drill that we're gonna be doing to determine how much energy we need to be putting into the dice when we throw it down the table. And this is something that you can do throughout the belt levels. It's good to start it early, yeah, early on in our training, which is right about now. And we'll get into that in just a little bit here. So we did our dice scripts. We have 10 of those. We have our drop tests. So let's switch over to this different view here. Let's do 3 to 5 drop tests. So we're just gonna get into our grip, come up, release with that thumb, and release with that forefinger. So our dice are in our grip. We're set up square and tight, coming up and just releasing with that thumb. Missed you yesterday, Navaldo. And the last one here. Okay, let's collect the dice. Get them all the way here for us. Okay. And then we'll just do some dice manipulation again today. We've worked on setting the dice quite a bit already, guys, and getting into our sets. So we're gonna kind of skip through that today. Just remember, on your own, practice getting into your dice sets. We'll just for this level, we're gonna go with the 5-4-5-4, which is our base set. We're also gonna go with the 1-2-2-3 dice set, and also the 5-4-2-3 dice set. But all we're gonna do for dice manipulation, just rotate the dice towards us. Use 2 fingers to rotate it away from us. And the reason we're doing this, and you can do that in one place without even rotating on the table. You can do it 2 fingers backwards. I like to rotate on a table, and then sometimes when I do that, it has a slight curve, so that way you can see all the different sides of numbers. Remember, the numbers add up to 7 on opposite sides, so the 3 has the 4, the 6 has the 1, and the 5 has the 2. So the opposites are 7s. This working for a living stuff is really hard, Navaldo goes. I hear you, my friend. I work 60 hours a week, plus I do my YouTube channel, which is another 20 to 30 hours a week of videos and editing and what have you. So I feel you, my friend. But anyhow, so we did our rotations. All we could do it to the sides, and you can just do it with your thumb, or you can use 2 fingers if you want. And then opposite sides. I like doing that with my thumb. You can also do your rotation drills. So rotating to the left or rotating to the right. Okay, and then you can also do pinch it, and you can use your finger to rotate, your middle finger. Okay, or you can just do middle finger and use your index finger and spin the opposite way. Um, so a bunch of different things you can do to manipulate the dice. These are little drills that you should be practicing and you should be going through so that way you feel comfortable with the dice on a table. You can get right into your dice set a little bit faster, a little bit easier. So let's go to the 5-4-5-4 dice set, and there it is. You can go to the 5-4, the 5-4-2-3 dice set. There it is. You can go to the 1-2-2-3 dice set, and there it is. So that's where the drills come in handy, and it helps a lot with handling the dice at the table. And the better you can become with that, the more comfortable you are going to be at the craps table when you're doing the drills. So let's move on to George's corner, and let's see what George has to talk about today. So George is going to be talking about the releasing of the dice now. And he talks about your hand and your fingers. And he says, our index finger is considered to be, by 82% of the world population, the most dominant finger. The thumb is the most powerful one. What the par shot is asking you to do is to retrain them to be less dominant. In the case of the index finger, it should be acting as an equal with the ring finger. And in case of the thumb, it should be acting as an immovable object during the whole process of the toss until the release point where it should open up and release the dice as opposed to push the dice forward to their final destination. When you first start practicing, this is counterintuitive for anyone new to dice tossing. It certainly was to me until I really realized the reason. As far as the index finger is concerned, it should be at an equal length as the ring finger so that the dice have a common fulcrum point from which, when released, they can use to start their back spinning in unison. By making the index finger more involved than the ring finger leads to different fulcrum points being applied to the dice. Therefore, your rotations will differ in either speed or relative distance from each die on the release. As for the thumb, as described before, if you involve the thumb in pushing the dice, you'll have a very high possibility of splitting the dice open due to the push and getting an unpredictable result out of the toss. Forcing your thumb to move backwards and allowing the dice to flow out of your hand freely will allow the centrifugal force to be applied uniformly across both dice and send them in unison to their landing zone, hopefully in united rotations. So what George's message is there, and this is something that I've been trying to communicate as we've been going through, is one thing is with the thumb. You release the dice with the thumb. So when you're doing your draw test, remember I said we're gonna go through and we're gonna release with that thumb. So if I come in and just release with that thumb, the dice will hopefully fly out of your hand evenly or more consistent, more in unison, and you're gonna avoid that pushing or that splitting of the dice if you can release with the thumb. Now, one thing I really have not covered, and I don't know, I just probably took it for granted, I guess, and George goes through and talks about this, is making sure that all three of your fingers, if you're using a par grip, are straight. And one of the things he does is when he sets up for the dice, he'll actually take his fingers and push them into the table, so that way he knows that they are straight. And I'm going to turn this way so I can get into the dice grip a little bit easier. But if you guys can see that now, they're going to be straight across. Let me get to the sixes here so you can see a little bit better. So that way, what's going to happen is they're going to be straight across the dice now, and they're going to be all in a straight line. So that way, when they rotate off your fingers, it's going to act as a fulcrum, and they're all going to be at the same level, so the dice will hopefully be spinning at the same um, level, and they'll stay tighter together. Now, I use the three-finger front Uri grip, or the three-finger front diagonal grip, which is also called a Uri grip. And this is going to be the same thing for me now, too. I have to make sure that my three fingers are as close together as possible, so that way when they're spinning off my fingers, I can use that as a fulcrum point, and it'll be all in unison, and the dice will stay straight, hopefully, if I do it correctly. So that's the one thing that I want to kind of go through for George's Corner and explain to you a little bit about what he was talking about and why that's important. The next thing we're going to do is, before we get into our tosses, I want to go through another drill that actually George came up with. And I'm going to adjust my camera here. Give me 1 second so we can actually see what's going on here. And hopefully this adjustment here will cover what I need to cover. And the drill that he talks about is going through and starting, let's say we're starting at a stick left 1 position. So I'm throwing from back in here by the stick left 1 position. And he talks about going all the way down to the end of the table to start your dice tossing practice. So I'm going to get into my grip, and my hand, I'm actually at a stick right 3 position. So I'm almost at that hook position. And I'm about 10 inches away from the wall. And all he wants you to do is just gently toss the dice up against the wall so they barely touch the dice or the wall when it comes down and lands. And what we're doing is we're trying to train ourselves to know how much energy to put into the dice, and we're trying to minimize the amount of energy that is in that dice when it hits the wall. So once you do that about 10 times, 5 times, somewhere around there, take a step away from the wall again, and now we're going to be at a stick right 2 position approximately, and we're still going to throw into that wall, and we're going to try to get it set up so that it barely touches the wall again. That time was a little bit too hard. I'm going to grab the stick here just in case I need it. But we're going to go and we're going to keep on practicing it until we get to the position where the dice are barely touching the back wall, and you're going to commit that amount of energy that you're putting into the dice to memory. So that was pretty good. They're pretty much up tight against the wall. Once you get that down, you're going to take another step, and right now we will be at stick right 1 position approximately. And we're going to practice at this position then, just so they barely touch the wall. And you do this a couple times and get this down comfortable, so that way when it hits the wall, they're barely bouncing off. Once you get that position down, you're going to actually jump over to your stick left 1 position, or somewhere right around there. And you're going to do it again and get it so it barely touches the wall. And what happens then is you start getting a pattern down. You start getting some muscle memory down, so you know exactly how much energy you're putting into the dice. Good morning, Jeff. So I'm going through right now, Jeff, a drill that George from CY had suggested. And what it is it's a drill that you can go through, and you might want to go back in the video after we're done here and kind of watch and review it. And it shows you how to minimize the amount of energy that's stored in the dice for when you throw them down to the end of the table. So that is one of the goals of a person who's trying to influence the dice, is to minimize the energy that's stored in the dice. And that's hypothetically, and it's hypothetically one of the things that you could do to help become less random with your rolls. Good morning, Mike. So anyhow, let's continue on with our other training. We're going to go through our barrel tosses. Get your barrel dice out, guys. We're going to go through 5 tosses, and all we're going to do is just going to toss it down to the end of the table. And this is also where you can practice that minimizing the energy in the dice. So they just barely touch the back wall. And that's where that drill really comes in handy. So you're going to go through approximately about 5 of these tosses. And also the other benefit of learning the energy that's needed to get the dice down to the other side of the table will actually come into play for our next belt level, for our green belt level. Because in the green belt, we're going to be actually working on landing zones. Where to find your ultimate landing zone, the optimal landing zone, the place that you want the dice to land at the end of the table so you can get them to hopefully behave the way that you are hoping. So we got our barrel dice. Now let's move on to the regular dice. Same practice. We're going to try to get them to the opposite end of the table with minimal energy. We're going to try to keep them together tight as much as possible, and so that they land up against that wall. And if you guys have been following along with this series, remember that I have had very minimal training in the past, just stuff that I've done on my own on the table here. But as I'm going through, hopefully you can see a major improvement in what I'm trying to teach. You know, I'm looking at my dice right now and I can see that they're much tighter together. They're going down the table more uniformly. I'm using less energy to get it down there. And now they're not always exactly the way they should be, but I'm getting more and more consistent as the throws are going. So again, we have about 5 of these tosses. Let's do one more. And let me switch camera views here again, guys. Let me adjust my camera. Sorry for the... There we go. That should be better. Sorry for the not switching back to where it should have been. One of the bad things of doing live streams. So you see that the dice are actually going down the table. They are staying tighter together. That was a nice toss. End up with a hard 10. Waylon's best friend on the end. And we'll go through one more. And that one was a little bit off. My right die was a little bit higher than the left one. And that could have been because I did not release the fingers properly. Let's do one more time so we can hopefully end on a good note. So anyhow, we got that done. Now let's pull that height tool out. Let's pull that tool out. And remember that I had previously, several videos ago, put a tape mark on my table here. And that's going to be at that halfway point plus 3 inches. So I measured out my throwing positions about 107 inches. So I went halfway point. My string here is going to be at 56 inches or 4 feet 8 inches from the ground. The camera view makes it look like it's a lot higher than that, but it really is not. If I'm standing right next to it, let's see, you can barely see my head here. It comes about mid-chest level when I'm standing, and I am about 5 foot 10 and a half inches tall. So that's pretty decent. And that should be acceptable when you're at pretty much any craps table. They always want you to keep it at head level or lower. So now we have the height tool out, we're going to go through, and this is at the orange belt level. We're going to be practicing a little bit more with the height tool. So we're going to start with the barrel dice here, and we're going to get into our grip, and then we're just going to toss it down the end of the table so we can just barely clear that string. Right now, at this particular moment, we're not worried about how straight it is. We're just trying to get it over that string so we can minimize the amount of energy in the dice when they land and hit the end of the table. The thing that we're doing with the barrel dice here is we're also trying to get it so we can practice throwing down and the dice stay square as they fly through the air. That is the one downfall or deficiency that I have when I'm throwing with this barrel dice. I could do without the string really good. But my consistency, and that was terrible, it was really high. My consistency, once I get the height tool out with the barrel dice, is not that good. But the weird thing is, I get the regular dice out and I'm actually doing really well with it. So, that was a really good one. So, when you're practicing, we got about 20 to 50 of these throws. And again, like I said yesterday, the variance comes in because you want to do at least a minimum of 20 throws. And you're going to work up as many as you can until you get comfortable, until you get consistent with the throw, and you start seeing the results that you really want to see. So you can see that my dice are starting to level out now. It's starting to get uniform. It's starting to get consistent. And once I feel comfortable doing that, let's go one more here. Once you start getting that, we'll get the regular dice out. And again, we're going to do that with the height tool. So here's our regular dice. And we're going to get in to our position. And then we're just going to throw it so it just clears that string. They stay as tight as possible as they're flying through the air, and they come down with very minimal energy at the other side of the table. So again, when you're doing this, now you're going to go through 20 to 50 throws. We're not going to do that many on camera. This is something that I will complete my training after the live stream is done. Once you're feeling comfortable with this and you get at least 20 throws in, then we're going to take that laser level out. We're going to actually try to do the straight line here. Let's see if my laser works today. I'm going to draw a straight line down a table. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera. My laser light is coming through right at these bumps right here. So now we're going to get the barrel dice out again. And we're going to practice throwing so we can throw down and it barely clears the string and we land in a straight line. So we land right in front of that laser light. Terrible throw. I pulled it. And this is why practice is important, guys. And what I mean by pulled it is when I come up, I should be releasing here. And I held on just a split second too long and it came off to the right a little bit. Now it was enough to throw my throw off. That one was good. And again, we're going to do, when you're practicing, 20 to 50 of these until you get so they're consistent and you're comfortable with it. So in the comments here, guys, either the live chat now or if you're watching this after the live stream is done, in the comments, make sure you guys put down what you're finding is helping you the most from the training here. What are we going through that is helping you get the best results? So what kind of tools, what kind of techniques, what kind of tactics are we using that has helped you in your dice training journey? For me, it's the repetitions. It's the actual focusing on the hand and releasing to make sure that you're square through the air. It's also the fact that we're starting off with a slight angle on the felt here. Most people will get into a grip and they'll start square this way with one of the lines. My dice start off crooked like that. That's one of the things that has helped me tremendously. Okay. Once you get comfortable with this, we're going to move on to the regular dice. And we'll do, again, 20 to 50 of these with the regular dice. And we're trying to get it down to the end of the table so they land right in front, right in line with that laser light. You guys can see the laser light probably on my stick here. Probably better than you can with the wall. I don't know if you guys can see that. So, um, anyhow, make sure you leave those comments in there, guys. Do a couple more of these. Make sure that you're focusing, on what you're doing. That one, the left die split off a little bit. So I'm guessing I released with the forefinger a little bit too fast. That was a really good throw. Okay, once you get this down, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go and add in the last part to our orange belt level. And that is starting off with the 5-4-5-4 dice set, which is our base dice set. And we're going to throw it down to the end of the table now, and we're going to try to get it so that there's no 6 or there's no 1 showing upwards. So that means that everything's staying on axis then if we can get it to do it. So a 5, 4, 3, or 2 is showing on the top of the dice when it comes to rest. That's the ultimate goal. Again, if it's not happening on a regular basis, we're not terribly concerned about it at this point. That's something we will be working on in a couple belt levels from now, trying to analyze and see why it's in that. But let's just throw it down there and try to keep it so they land with one of those numbers up, without the 1 or the 6 showing. And that's a 3-1 Big Joe from Craftsmaster Journey. So there is a 1 showing. So one of the dice did go off of axis there. I think it went off when it hit the wall. Because what's happening is I'm throwing a little bit to the right and I'm hitting that mixing bowl. I'm hitting that corner. That was a 6-4, so 1 off again. And that time I believe was the right dice that went off axis. So once you get that down, it's a good thing to practice here, guys, so you can work on trying to keep everything on axis. And something that we're going to be using more of as the program goes forward. So anyhow, let's go over to our homework corner. And for homework today, again, we're going to go through the 10 dice scripts. We're going to go through the 3 to 5 drop tests. And instead of doing the dice setting today, we're going to do the dice manipulation drills again. And then after that, we're going to go through, we're going to do that distancing test, the one that George had come up with. So that way we could practice on trying to come up with how much energy to use with the dice when we're throwing it as it's going on the table. We're going to follow that up with 5 barrel tosses without the height tool, 5 regular dice tosses without the height tool. Then we're going to pull the height tool out, and we're going to do 20 to 50 tosses with the barrel dice, 20 to 50 tosses with the regular dice. And then we're going to switch over to the 5-4-5-4 hardway set with the regular dice, and we're going to actually throw them down to the end of the table over to the height tool, using that and try not to get a 6 or a 1 coming up. So hopefully this has been a good training for you guys today. Make sure that you go out and you share this video. Make sure that you give me the thumbs up and you give me the likes. Also, guys, consider doing super thanks, super chats, super stickers. Hey, my name is Joe, and this is my Craftsmaster Dice Shooting Journey. Let's make it yours too.